The delivery truck's brakes screeched like a banshee's wail outside our cul-de-sac. But by the time Brandon sprinted barefoot across the dew-slick lawn, the crate was already vanishing into the twilight, pilfered by the queen of busybodies herself, Karen Whitaker. "Thieves!" she shrieked from her manicured porch, clutching the wooden slats like a trophy, her perm-frizzed hair haloed by the porch light, oblivious to the fortune she'd just condemned herself to lose. In that split-second heartbeat, as Shane's hand tightened on my shoulder from the doorway, I knew our quiet life in Willow Creek Estates was about to shatter like the artisanal cheeses tumbling from her grasp. I remember the exact moment the world tilted on its axis, the way the summer air hung thick with jasmine and regret, because that's when Karen Whitaker decided our love wasn't just different, it was criminal. Brandon and I had poured everything into Willow Creek Urban Farm, our little organic delivery service that turned backyard plots into lifelines for families like ours, scraping by in the shadow of McMansions and HOA fines. We'd met 3 years back at a farmer's market in downtown Austin, him with his calloused hands cradling heirloom tomatoes like fragile dreams, me sketching logos on napkins while dodging the Texas heat. Shane O'Malley, the artist with ink-stained fingers and a laugh that could melt barbed wire. That's me. Or at least that's who I was before the theft that bound us tighter than any vow. But let's back up, because the hook isn't just the steal. It's the unraveling that followed, thread by thread, until we stood naked before the judge, the jury, and our own fractured hearts. Willow Creek was the kind of suburb where lawns were religion and deviations from the norm got you a stern letter from the board. We'd bought our fixer-upper with savings from Shane's graphic design gigs and my barista shifts, dreaming of a porch swing where we'd host brunches for the neighbors who smiled through gritted teeth. The first sign of trouble was the passive-aggressive notes. "Please adhere to community standards. Rainbow flags may offend." We laughed it off, hung the damn thing higher, and doubled down on the farm, sourcing microgreens from local growers, cheeses from Vermont artisans, and those precious crates of aged balsamic from a co-op in Napa that cost more than our mortgage payment. That fateful Tuesday, the truck from Napa lumbered in at 4 p.m., right as the cicadas started their dirge. Brandon was elbow-deep in compost, his flannel shirt rolled to his elbows, sweat tracing paths down his neck that I itched to follow later under the covers. "Shane, babe, grab the dolly," he called, that easy Texas drawl wrapping around me like home. I was inside, mocking up labels for our new Pride Harvest line, subtle nods to who we were, because subtlety was survival in Willow Creek. The driver waved, signed the manifest, and rumbled off, leaving the crate squatting innocently on the curb, stamped with fragile, $15,000 value, in bold red. Karen struck like a viper in pearls. She'd been circling for weeks, ever since our pride flag caught the breeze during her weekly HOA patrol. "It's not about orientation," she'd cooed at the last meeting, her voice syrupy with venom, "but aesthetics. We have standards." Her husband, poor muted Ed, nodded like a bobblehead, but it was Karen who ruled the roost, queen of the covenant with her clipboard and her grudges. From our kitchen window, I saw her shadow detach from the oak tree across the street, her sensible flats whispering over the asphalt. She paused, glanced left and right, no witnesses, then hoisted the crate with a grunt that echoed her dissatisfaction with the world. Brandon burst through the door first, eyes wild. "The balsamic, it's gone. I saw her shadow. Shane, she took it." His voice cracked, not from fear, but from the bone-deep weariness of proving we belonged. I grabbed my phone, dialing 911 before reason could intervene. But he stopped me, hand on my wrist, pulse racing under my thumb. Wait. Evidence. We filmed this shit. We dashed out. Me with the iPhone in selfie mode, capturing her silhouette as she dragged the crate up her driveway, muttering about litter and eyesores. The video caught it all. The slats splintering, dark liquid, aged to perfection over decades, seeping onto her pristine concrete like blood from a wound. By dawn, the cops were at her door, Willow Creek's finest looking sheepish under the floodlights. Detective Ruiz, a burly Latina with a no-nonsense braid, explained it over lukewarm coffee in our kitchen. Grand larceny, Mr. O'Malley. That crate's value pushes it over the felony threshold in Texas. Intent to deprive. Ma'am sir. She corrected herself with a wink. The first flicker of allyship in this beige hellscape. Karen, dragged out in her robe, spat accusations. They planted it, deviants trying to frame a good Christian woman. But the manifest, the video, the Napa Co-op's frantic emails, it all piled up like storm debris. As the cruisers lit the night blue and red, Brandon leaned into me on the porch steps, his breath hitching. What if they turn on us? The board, the neighbors, they've hated us since day one. His vulnerability hit like a gut punch. This man who'd faced down homophobes at markets and microaggressions at barbecues, now trembling because one theft cracked open the fault lines of our fragile empire. I pulled him close, inhaling the earth on his skin, whispering, "Then we fight, love, together." Like always, but deep down, I felt the tremor too, the betrayal not just of Karen, but of the dream we'd built on borrowed time. The arraignment was a circus, Willow Creek's gossip mill churning overtime. We'd barely slept, tangled in sheets that smelled of him, trading soft reassurances until exhaustion claimed us. "Remember Austin?" Brandon murmured at 3 a.m., his fingers tracing the tattoo on my ribcage. A compass rose inked the night we moved in. "That stall by the river, you sketching while I haggled for peppers." Felt like we could conquer anything. I kissed his temple, tasting salt. "We still can. This is just a pothole on the road to brunch empire." Courtroom 4 in Travis County smelled of stale ambition and Lysol, the kind of place where dreams went to get plea bargained. Karen sat ramrod straight in orange scrubs that clashed with her indignation. Her lawyer, a slick suit from the HOA's Rolodex, spinning tales of misunderstanding and community service. But Ruiz had done her homework. The balsamic wasn't just vinegar. It was heirloom stock, traceable to a vineyard that traced its lineage to Italian immigrants who'd smuggled vines across the Atlantic. Value, $15,267. Texas Penal Code 31.03, felony theft over $2,500. Case closed. Almost. Then came the twist, the one that sliced deeper than any indictment. Ed Whitaker, Karen's long-suffering shadow, took the stand. "She didn't mean it," he droned, eyes downcast. "It's the stress, the farm next door. Always that display." He gestured vaguely toward our house, the pride flag still fluttering defiantly. The gallery murmured, a ripple of old prejudices. Brandon's hand found mine under the bench, squeezing until knuckles whitened. But it was what Ed whispered to the bailiff later, overheard by a sympathetic clerk and relayed to us. That gutted us. Karen's not the only one. The board's been talking. Eviction proceedings if they don't drop charges. Betrayal. Pure and suburban. The HOA board, chaired by none other than Ed's golf buddy, had been plotting. Our farm wasn't just a business. It was a symbol, a queer oasis in their manicured desert. They'd ignored our complaints about their standards, fined us for excessive signage on our delivery van. But this, framing the theft as mutual sabotage, it reeked of the kind of quiet malice that builds walls higher than any rainbow. That night, rain lashed the windows like accusations, and Brandon paced our living room, the floorboards creaking under his bare feet. How do we fight ghosts? Shane? Invisible hands pulling strings. His voice broke, and he sank onto the couch, head in hands. I knelt before him, tilting his chin up, those blue eyes stormy as the Gulf. By loving harder, by showing them we're not going anywhere, our kiss started tentative, a balm for bruised souls, deepening into the kind of anchor that no storm could unmoor. In the dim lamplight, with thunder rumbling like distant applause, we rediscovered each other, not as victims, but as warriors, lips and limbs a testament to resilience. Word spread like wildfire through Willow Creek's Facebook group, Karen in cuffs, those boys pressing charges. And suddenly, we were pariahs with pitchforks. Grocery runs turned into gauntlets. Mrs. Hargrove from down the block crossed the street, clutching her pearls. But cracks appeared in the facade. Javier, the landscaper who'd tipped us off about Ed's whisper, showed up with tamales and a six-pack. Mi gente, he said, clapping Brandon's shoulder. You fight the good fight. Karen's been terrorizing us all, fining my crew for litter when it's just clippings. Javier's alliance was the first thread pulling us back from the brink. He introduced us to Rosa, a single mom 2 streets over who'd lost her job to HOA pettiness, fined out of existence for a kiddie pool that violated aesthetics, over backyard beers. Stories tumbled out. The board's secret slush fund for beautification projects that lined their pockets. The quiet evictions of anyone who didn't fit the mold. It's not just you, Rosa said, her eyes fierce. It's all of us, the renters, the immigrants, the different ones. She glanced at our intertwined hands, smiling softly. The queers, emboldened, we organized. Not a protest too flashy for Willow Creek, but a potluck, billed as Neighborhood Harvest Share. Invites went out via Nextdoor. Bring a dish. Share a story. Let's eat like family. Skeptical at first, neighbors trickled in. The retired couple from Ohio with their Jell-O salad, the tech bro with craft IPAs, even Ed Whitaker, slinking in with a store-bought pie, eyes darting like a cornered fox. Brandon manned the grill, flipping veggie burgers with that disarming grin, while I curated the playlist, Springsteen for the old guard, Chapel Roan for the vibe shift. As dusk fell, plates balanced on knees, the air hummed with tentative chatter. Then Rosa stood, microphone in hand, a thrift store find. This community is supposed to be home. But homes don't evict dreams. She nodded to us, and Brandon rose, voice steady as oak. We started Willow Creek Urban Farm because we believe in roots, deep ones, that weather storms. Like the one Karen kicked up, laughter rippled, uneasy but real. He didn't mention the theft, not directly. Instead, he spoke of love, of building something amid the thorns. Shane and I, we're just 2 guys who fell hard. For each other, for this soil. And yeah, for balsamic that costs more than a used truck. More laughs. Warmer now. It shifted. Pie forgotten. When eyes turned to him, he cleared his throat. Karen. She's scared. Of change. But seeing this, Maybe it's time. It wasn't absolution, but it was a door cracking open. That night, as guests dispersed under strings of Edison bulbs, a young dad straight, married, minivan pulled Brandon aside. "Man, your story, it's home. My brother's gay came out last year. We got your back." Tears pricked Brandon's eyes, and mine too, because in Willow Creek, back meant everything. But romance, that sly fox, wove through the drama like ivy on lattice. Amid the chaos, Shane and I stole moments. Dawn walks along the creek, where he'd sketch the herons while I planned our next harvest. "You're my North Star," he'd say, pencil pausing, gaze locking on mine with that intensity that still buckled my knees. We'd make love slow and deliberate, bodies a map of shared scars. The faded bruise from a bar fight in Austin, the stretch marks from too many all-nighters launching the farm. No fireworks, just embers warm, enduring, the kind that light the way home. Yet the high court loomed, Karen's trial a specter over our fragile peace. Plea deals flew like confetti. Restitution, community service, a gag order on her opinions. But the board, they doubled down, mailing us a notice of violation for the potluck, unauthorized gathering. Javier laughed it off, filing countersuits with a pro bono lawyer from Lambda Legal. "These gringos think covenants trump civil rights? Watch this." The climax crashed on a sweltering August afternoon, court packed with potluck converts. Karen took the stand, transformed, not broken, but humbled, her perm subdued, voice quavering. I saw the crate, thought it was junk from there. Operation. The flag waving, mocking our values. I was wrong. Angry at shadows. Tears tracked her cheeks, real ones, and for a heartbeat, I pitted her, the cage of her own making. The judge, a silver-haired Texan with a drawl like molasses, leaned forward. "Ms. Whitaker, values aren't walls. They're bridges. You crossed a line. Grand larceny ain't a slap on the wrist. Guilty. 6 months suspended. $20,000 restitution. Insurance covered half. And mandatory diversity training." As cuffs clicked for processing, symbolic, but sharp, the gallery erupted. Cheers from our corner, stunned silence from hers. Ed rushed the bench, begging mercy, but the gavel fell like finality. Outside, under a sky bruised purple, Brandon and I stood arm in arm, reporters circling like vultures. "Any words for the community?" one asked. Mike thrust forward. He glanced at me, that boyish smile breaking through. "Love wins. Always. But it takes all of us to till the soil." The aftermath was a quiet revolution. The board dissolved amid scandals. Slush fund exposed. Ed resigning in disgrace. Willow Creek urban farm boomed. Subscriptions pouring in from Austin hipsters and suburban converts alike. We hired Javier full-time, Rosa as community liaison, turning plots into shared gardens where rainbows weren't flags but actual prisms in the spray. One crisp fall evening, as leaves turned gold, Brandon proposed, not on bended knee with a ring, but in the dirt, hands filthy from planting garlic. "Marry me, Shane? Not for papers or picnics, but because you're my harvest. Every damn year." I said yes with a kiss that tasted of earth and eternity. Neighbors toasting with our new redemption red blend, balsamic infused, irony not lost. Karen, she moved to a condo in Round Rock. Last we heard, volunteering at a food bank. No Christmas cards, but a check arrived anonymously, full restitution, with interest. Human, after all. In Willow Creek, the lawns still gleam, but now with wild edges, community plots blooming defiant. And us? We're still fighting, loving, growing. Because in America, the heartland's not just cornfields. It's the stubborn beat of two men, hand in hand, refusing to yield. The gavel's echo hadn't even faded when the real storm hit. Not legal briefs or HOA memos, but the kind that bruise in the gut, twisting love into doubt. Brandon and I drove home in silence, the AC blasting against the humidity, his fingers drumming the wheel like Morse code for, what now? Willow Creek blurred past. Identical colonials with their, bless this mess signs masking the mess within. I wanted to crack a joke. Something about Karen's new orange jumpsuit matching her politics. But the words stuck, heavy as the restitution check we'd never see. Pulling into our driveway, the pride flag sagged in the still air, a casualty of the week's winds. Brandon killed the engine, staring at it like an accusation. You think they won, Shane? Even with the verdict, his voice was raw, stripped bare in the dashboard glow. I reached for him, thumb brushing his jaw, but he flinched, not from me, but from the mirror of our fragility. Babe, we won the battle. The war's just starting. Inside, the house felt too big, echoes amplifying the emptiness. We decorated it piecemeal. Shane's abstracts on the walls, splashes of turquoise and rust. Brandon salvaged wood shelves groaning under seed catalogs and dog-eared cookbooks. But tonight, it was a stage set for reckoning. He poured whiskey, top shelf, a splurge from our first profitable month, handing me a tumbler with a ghost of his usual grin. To thieves and triumphs, we clinked, sipped, and the burn unlocked the floodgates. Ed's testimony, Brandon said, sinking into the armchair, legs sprawled like a man unmoored. That hesitation, like our love was the punchline. What if Javier's wrong? What if the board comes back stronger? With fresh suits, his eyes, those ocean blues, darkened with the tide of what-ifs. I knelt by his side, glass forgotten, hands on his knees. Then we pivot. Like we did in Austin, when the market shut us out for family values. Remember, we went pop-up, fed half the city from a food truck named Out of the Closet Catering. He laughed, a rusty sound that warmed the room. God, that truck. Painted it rainbow myself, nearly got towed every block. His fingers threaded through mine, pulling me up onto his lap, the whiskey's heat mingling with his. Our foreheads touched, breaths sinking in that intimate rhythm we'd honed over years. You're my constant, Shane. The one plot that never fails. The kiss that followed was slow, exploratory, a reclamation, not urgent, but profound, lips mapping the contours of endurance. Yet doubt lingered, a shadow puppeteer. The next morning, over coffee black as our moods, the mail brought the dagger, a letter from the HOA's interim committee, Ed's signature scrawled at the bottom. Pending review of community impact. Cease farm operations until further notice. Brandon's mug shattered on the tile, shards scattering like our resolve. Bastards. They can't. We own the land, but Texas covenants were ironclad, loopholes sewn shut by lawyers on retainers. Javier arrived mid-rant, toolbox in hand, his truck's bed loaded with seedlings. Heard about the letter. Roses on it, She's got a cousin in real estate law, specializes in queer evictions. He clapped Brandon's back, steering us to the backyard where raised beds waited like open wounds. Plant now, sue later. Dirt doesn't discriminate. We spent the day tilling, sweat-stung and silent at first, then laughing as worms wriggled free, nature's reminder of resilience. By sunset, the beds brimmed with kale and carrots, a green defiance. But romance, that resilient weed, pushed through the cracks. That evening, as stars pricked the indigo sky, Brandon strung lights across the patio, fairy bulbs, twinkling like promises. Date night, he declared, unveiling a picnic, cheese board from our salvage stock, minus the balsamic, crusty bread, and a bottle of Texas Red. We spread a blanket, legs entwined, feeding each other bites between stories, the kind that stitch souls. Tell me about before me, he said, head on my thigh, fingers toying with my belt loop. The Shane who sketched strangers in dive bars, I obliged, weaving tales of lonely nights in Chicago, easel my only companion, until Austin's sun thawed the ice. You were the plot twist, the farmer who saw colors in the chaos. His chuckle vibrated against me, hands sliding up to cup my face. In the glow, we loved quietly, bodies aligning like puzzle pieces worn smooth by time, whispers of mine and forever the only vows we needed. The board's countermove came swift, a petition circulating on Nextdoor. Preserve Willow Creek's character, vote to enforce standards, spearheaded by Mrs. Hargrove. It cited disruptive elements with dog whistle precision. Signatures piled up, 200 by noon, including faces from the potluck. Betrayal's second act, sharper than the first. Brandon scrolled the thread in bed, jaw clenched. Even the tech bro? After his speech about his brother, I snatched the phone, tossing it aside. People fear change more than thieves. We'll show them. Our counter? Transparency. We live-streamed a farm tour, me narrating, Brandon demonstrating compost turns, Javier chiming in with Spanish quips. This ain't just veggies, I said to the camera, arm around Brandon's waist. It's community. Roots that hold us all. Views spiked. 500. Then 2,000. Shares from Austin allies flooding in. Comments ranged from, love this, to HOA goons suck. But one stood out. Anonymous. From EW. Seeing the light. Signed the wrong petition. Sorry. Ed Whitaker's olive branch. He showed up the next day, pie in hand again, this time homemade, apple with a lattice that spoke of effort. Karen's in counseling, he mumbled, avoiding our eyes. Says to tell you. She's rooting for the farm. From afar, Brandon, ever the softy, invited him in for coffee. Over mugs, Ed confessed. The board's rot ran deep, kickbacks from developers eyeing our lots for flips. I enabled it. For peace. But your fight woke me up, alliance forged in awkward sips. Ed leaked docs, emails proving the petition was fabricated. Signatures bought with donations. Armed, we marched to the emergency board meeting. Javier and Rosa flanking, a rainbow of resolve. The room crackled. Hargrove blustered. But numbers had shifted, petitions retracted. Whispers of lawsuits. By adjournment, the covenant was gutted. Farms allowed. Flags flown free. High on victory, Brandon and I celebrated on the rooftop, our secret spot, overlooking the creek's silver thread. Blanket, wine, The city lights a distant hum. To us, he toasted, clinking plastic cups. The thieves who stole hearts, our laughter dissolved into kisses, the night wrapping us in velvet, bodies a symphony of gratitude, slow dances of touch, affirming life's abundance beyond ledgers. Yet humanity's arc bends slow. Karen's appeal hearing loomed, a final gauntlet. Whispers said she'd claim coercion, pin it on Ed's neglect. As prep dragged, tensions frayed, Brandon buried in logs, me in sketches for expansion. One night, words flew, him accusing me of detachment, me snapping at his obsession. We're partners, not martyrs. Door slammed, silence thick as fog. Morning brought contrition. Breakfast in bed. His note. Sorry, love. You're my soil. We talked it out on the porch swing, rocking gently, hands clasped. Scared I'll lose you to this fight, he admitted. Never, I vowed, sealing it with a kiss that mended more than rifts. Romance reborn, fiercer, a reminder that love's the ultimate harvest. The appeal, dismissed in 10 minutes flat. Karen, subdued in civvies, nodded our way, no smile, but acknowledgement. Restitution wired by dusk. Willow Creek exhaled, gardens blooming unchecked. With the legal dust settling like pollen on petals, Willow Creek began to breathe, unevenly at first, gasps of adaptation amid the chokehold of habit. Brandon and I threw ourselves into the farm. Expansion plans sketched on butcher paper over late-night tacos. A co-op store on the corner lot. Classes on sustainable living. Maybe a pride garden with flowers in pansexual pinks and aromantic grays. Our legacy, he'd say, pencil between teeth. That focused furrow between his brows making my heart stutter. Shane O'Malley, artist turned agitator. I'd counter with mock salutes, but inside, it thrilled, the vision of us, etched in earth. Javier's crew transformed the backyard into a verdant maze, raised beds marching like soldiers under his command. Rosa organized the first harvest circle, a weekly huddle where neighbors swapped seeds and stories. The tech bro Mark, with his man bun and microbrew, brought his brother out, a shy graphic designer who bonded with me over Adobe shortcuts. Thanks for the courage, he said one dusk, as we weeded side by side. Coming out felt impossible here. You made it real. Brandon, overhearing, shot me a wink across the rows, pride swelling his chest like summer squash. But romance, that tender shoot, needed tending too. We'd fallen into routines. Dawn kisses before chores, evenings with feet up, binging Queer Eye while critiquing the makeovers. One Saturday, I surprised him. A drive to the hill country, wildflowers rioting along the roadside. Picnic under an ancient oak. Wild turkey sandwiches from our stock. A sketchpad for impromptu portraits. Your turn, I said, charcoal smudging my fingers as I captured his profile against the horizon. Jaw set, eyes dreaming. Beautiful, he murmured later, flipping through the pages, then pulling me close. The lovemaking that followed was lazy, sun-dappled, a communion with the land, hands in hair, breaths in sync, the world fading to the rhythm of us. Ed's redemption arc, though, was the subplot no one scripted. He volunteered for the co-op build, hammer in hand, sweat beading on his bald pate. Making amends, he'd grunt, nailing studs with more force than finesse. Karen's absence loomed, rumors of her in therapy, journaling gratitude lists that included our names. One afternoon, a package arrived. Handmade jam from her new hobby farm upstate. Note enclosed. Tart, but sweetening. K. Brandon read it aloud. Brow arched. Humanity's a hell of a crop. The conflict reignited subtly. A spark from the embers. Developers circling. Suits with clipboards eyeing our expansion. The board's remnants, Hargrove and her cadre, whispered alliances, promising upgrades that meant teardowns. At the next community meeting, held in the rec center with its faded banners, tensions simmered. Mark stood first, voice steady. We've got momentum. Don't sell our souls for shiny roofs. Applause. Tentative, but building. Then Hargrove rose, pearls clicking like judgments. Progress isn't pride parades in our parks. This farm, it's a fad. Sell now, before values plummet. Brandon's turn. He gripped the podium, knuckles white, but his voice rang clear, laced with that farm boy earnestness. Values? Let's talk real ones. The kind that feed families, not flip houses. Shane and I poured sweat into the soil because we believe in roots. Yours, mine, ours. Evict that. And what's left? Silence. Then a slow clap from Ed, swelling to thunder. Hargrove sat, deflated, her petition a relic. Post-meeting high carried us home, where we celebrated with rooftop stargazing, blanket fort of pillows, constellations our canopy. You were magnificent, I whispered, tracing Orion's belt on his chest. His laugh rumbled low. We. Always we. The night unfolded in whispers and wonders, bodies entwined under the vault of sky, love a constellation of its own, points of light connected by invisible lines, enduring eclipses. Betrayal's echo, though, hadn't fully silenced. Whispers reached Javier, Hargrove bribing holdouts, dangling buyouts. We confronted Ed over fence-line beers, the creek murmuring conspiracy. She's desperate, he admitted, nursing his bottle. Lost her husband's pension to bad stocks. But I told her, enough. His eyes met Brandon's. Steady. You're family now. All of you. That word family unlocked something. The next harvest circle ballooned. Potluck tables groaning under tamales, pies, vegan curries. Rosa emceed, Mike passing like a talking stick. Stories spilled. The widow who'd planted in grief, the kid coming out to applause. When it circled to us, Brandon pulled me up. Shane's the visionary, the one who sees beauty in the blank canvas. Me, I just grow what's there. Murmurs of, ah. Then cheers as I kissed him quick, salt lips sweet. Developers backed off, spooked by Unity and a viral video of the circle, Willow Creek roots trending locally. The co-op broke ground, cornerstone laid with our hands in the dirt, rings of soil caking our vows. Yet the emotional undercurrent pulled strong. Nights, Brandon would wake sweating, dreams of crates vanishing, neighbors turning pitchforks to torches. I'd hold him then, murmurs of safe, here, until his breaths evened. One such night, post-nightmare, he turned to me, vulnerable. What if it's not enough? The farm, the fight. What if I drag you down? Tears wet my shoulder, rare as rain in July. You lift me, every day. We're the story that writes itself. Dawn brought clarity. A couple's retreat ad, tucked in the paper, reconnect in the pines. We booked it, escaping to cabins amid whispering firs. No phones, just trails and talks. Hiking to a waterfall, mist kissing our faces, we bared souls. Fears of stagnation, dreams of kids maybe, via surrogacy or fostering. A family, he said, water roaring approval. Evenings by the fire, esmores and stories, led to intimacies profound. Not passions blaze, but embers glow, touches that spoke volumes unspoken. Returning renewed, Willow Creek welcomed us with open plots. The co-op's first harvest, bumper crop, shelves stocked. Opening day drew crowds, Austin foodies, locals tentative then ravenous. Toasts rang, to roots and rainbows. Karen's shadow lifted fully when she appeared at the ribbon cutting. Uninvited but undeterred, a jar of jam in hand. Tried your greens. Grew my own patch. Awkward hugs. Then ease. Humanity, blooming late but bright. Autumn painted Willow Creek in fire. Oaks ablaze. The creek a ribbon of molten copper. And with it came a harvest of reckonings, both bitter and balm. The co-op thrived. Cash register chiming like wind chimes. But success bred scrutiny. Austin Chronicle ran a feature, From Felony to Farm Stand. Queer couple cultivates change in suburbia. Photos of us mid-laugh. Arms slung casual. Captioned, Love's Labor. Orders surged. But so did the trolls. Online vitriol from Hargrove's echo chamber. Petitions morphing to protests. Brandon fielded the first picket. 3 retirees with signs, keep it straight. Literally, parked curbside like statues. He met them with muffins, plate balanced on hip. Blueberry or bran, fuel for the fight. Disarmed, they grumbled but took bites. One muttering, not bad. Son, by week's end. Signs sagged. Muffins won converts. Diplomacy by pastry, I teased that night, frosting his nose with icing from our test batch. His retaliation was a tickle war, dissolving into giggles and grapples on the kitchen floor. Flour dusted, joyful, a reminder that joy was our sharpest tool. Romance deepened in the details. Surprise notes in lunch sacks, you're my favorite plot twist. Stolen dances in the aisles to Norah Jones on loop. One rainy afternoon, co-op quiet, he pulled me into the cooler, chilled air nipping skin, produce a fragrant backdrop. Missed this, he said, hands framing my face, kiss cool then warming, a private rebellion against the world's chill. But conflict coiled tighter with the developer's return. Slicker now, with PowerPoints promising eco-luxury condos that reeked of greenwashing. At town hall, Hargrove testified, voice quavering with feigned concern. This farm disrupts harmony. Sell. Preserve our peace. The room tensed, our allies shifting. Then Ed rose. Unexpected. Harmony or hypocrisy? I've seen the ledgers, your donations to her campaign. Gasps rippled. Hargrove flushed crimson. Evidence tumbled. Emails, checks, a paper trail of corruption. The fallout was seismic. Hargrove resigned amid investigations, her cadre scattering. Developers slunk away, contracts voided. Willow Creek exhaled, but the victory tasted bittersweet, trust fractured, like overripe fruit. Brandon carried it heaviest, shoulders rounding under invisible weight. We exposed rot, but at what cost? Ed's risking everything. Nights, he'd pace the porch, cigarillo smoke curling like questions. I'd join him, blanket shared, head on his shoulder. Cost of growth, babe. Like pruning, hurts, but healthier after. Conversations stretched. His rural upbringing. Bible Belt bruises from a father who prayed away his confusion. My urban armor, built against rejection slings. You make me brave, he'd say, hand over heart. To heal, we hosted a forgiveness feast. Irony intentional. Menu heavy on reconciliation reds. Beet salads, cherry tomatoes, our reclaimed balsamic drizzled lavish. Invites broad. Allies, adversaries, et solo since Karen's distance. Tables groaned under communal bounty, laughter tentative then torrent. It cornered us by the grill. Thanks for not gloating. Karen. She's writing a blog now. From Karen to kinship, cringe, but progress. As stars wheeled, bonfire crackling, stories circled, apologies from picketers, toasts from Mark's brother. Brandon and I slow danced in the firelight, Chet Baker crooning low, steps synced seamless. Proud of us, he murmured, cheek to mine. The night peaked in quiet intensity later, bedroom aglow from embers reflection, touches reverent, exploring scars, affirming wholeness, love a liturgy of grace. Winter whispered in with frost-kissed mornings, co-op evolving, winter markets, wreath workshops with queer crafters. Revenue stabilized, enough for a down payment on adjacent land. But emotional undercurrents surged. Brandon's restlessness, itch for more than suburbia. What if we franchise? Take this to Dallas, Houston, over diner pie, maps unrolled, dreams dialogued. I sketched logos, sprawling vines, intertwined roots while he crunched numbers, synergy electric. Betrayal's final ghost, a leak to the press, anonymous tip framing Ed as the villain, us as opportunists. Headlines screamed, suburban scandal, queer farm fuels feud, hate mail piled, deliveries slashed. Brandon withdrew, farm his fortress. Tired of being the poster boys for progress, I confronted the mirror one dawn. My fault? Pushing exposure? No, timing's cruelty. Reconciliation came circuitous. A call from Karen, voice tinny over miles. Read the article. Lies. Ed's innocent, I know, because I started the rumors. Payback for his betrayal. Shock rippled. She confessed isolation's madness, therapy's truths. Tell him. Sorry. And you too, keep growing. Armed with recording, we drove to Ed's, now a rental, stripped bare. He listened, wept, nodded. Family forgives. Trio toast. To flawed foundations. Back home. Catharsis crashed. Brandon and I. Raw. Raging then releasing. Yells into pillows. Then embraces. Tears salting skin. Lovemaking followed. Cathartic. Urgent yet tender. Bodies battling phantoms. Emerging entwined. Renewed. Spring's thaw mirrored ours. Co-op annex blooming. Scandals fading to footnotes. We hired Ed part-time. His steady hands a quiet anchor. Karen's blog went viral locally. Karen's anonymous spawning support groups. Humanity's mosaic. Pieced patient. One evening. Creekside. Brandon knelt. Not proposal redux, but offering. A seedling pot. Heirloom tomato. Plant this with me? Our future. Hands in soil. Vows implicit. Love the loam binding us. Summer's swelter returned. Willow Creek a sauna of second chances. The air thick with honeysuckle and the hum of hard-won harmony. The co-op had morphed into a hub, not just sales, but sanctuary. Yoga in the mornings led by Rose's niece. Storytelling nights where voices long silenced found stage. Brandon thrived in the chaos, his farmer's intuition turning chaos to cornucopia, while I curated the aesthetics, murals on walls, pride pins on aprons. Your touch, he'd say, kissing my paint-flecked knuckles, makes it art. Yet beneath the bloom, fissures lingered. Ed's integration stirred old currents, whispers of sellout from purists who'd romanticized our lone stand. At a circle, a newcomer, fiery activist from Austin, challenged, allying with the enemy? That's assimilation, not revolution. Brandon bristled, but held steady. Revolution's relational. Hate doesn't harvest. Applause sparse, tension thick. Driving home, he gripped the wheel white-knuckled. Am I compromising us? For peace, we hashed it under the oak, beers sweating in grass. Peace isn't passive, I countered, lacing fingers. It's the soil for growth. Vulnerability cracked him open. Fears of fading fire, of love cooling to companionship. Want you wild, Shane, not tamed by suburbia. My response, a vow in verse, impromptu poem of passions past and pending. Laughter bridged the gap, leading to lakeside escape, rented cabin, canoe drifts at dawn. There, amid loons' calls, we rekindled. Swims naked in shallows, splashes turning to caresses. Nights of narrative, bodies telling tales of desire undimmed. Connection cosmic. Back in the fray, the developer's specter resurfaced, new firm, eco-sleek, pitching inclusive communities with queer tokens. Town Hall Redux. Slides glossy, promises hollow. Hargrove absent, but her ghost in the fine print, covenants rebranded, still strangling. Our coalition mobilized, petitions genuine, testimonies raw. Javier's speech stole show, mi familia fled chains in Mexico. Won't build new ones here. It followed, voice cracking, I was the chain. Now, I'm the link. Vote swung our way. Land preserved. Jubilation spilled into street party. Co-op as epicenter. Bands thumping folk punk anthems. Brandon and I danced center stage. Sweat slick. Spotlights haloing, not performers, but participants in the pulse. Later, rooftop confetti of fireflies. We made wishes on their glow family. Perhaps, a child to inherit this legacy. Autumn's palette deepened conflicts internal. Brandon's epiphany hit mid-harvest. We need scale. A non-profit arm, food access for underserved. Grants applied, dreams diagrammed. But bureaucracy bogged, rejections stinging like frost. Not queer enough, one letter sneered. Erasure's edge. Rage simmered. He slammed doors. I sketched furiously visions of justice unbound. Climax brewed in winter's grip. A gala fundraiser. Black tie in the co-op's loft. Transformed with twinkles and toasts. Donors mingled, tech philanthropists. Local legends. Karen arrived. Elegant in emerald. Arm linked with Ed's. Reconciliation's quiet triumph. Brought investors, she whispered, eyes twinkling contrite. But midway, leak struck. Rival firm hacked our emails, exposing grant drafts as radical agendas. Chaos, donors fleeing, headlines howling farm fraud, accusations flew, fingers pointing to insiders. Ed suspected, his past a noose. Confrontation in the alley, snow falling soft, Was it you? Again. Brandon's voice broke. Betrayal's blade fresh. Ed wept. No, Hargrove's ghost. Her last play. Proof surfaced. IP traces to her laptop. Desperate bid for comeback. High Court of Community. Emergency circle. Bonfire blazing. Testimonies torched lies. Ed cleared. Hargrove indicted for cyber mischief. But the wound trust's tear festered. Brandon retreated. Farm his confessional. How many times can we forgive? Nights, he'd curl away, back a wall. I'd spoon him gentle, whispers weaving, as many as love demands. We're the mend. Healing's hike. Valentine's dawn. Packed thermoses. Trail to overlook. At the crest. Vista vast. He turned. You're my horizon, Shane. Endless. Ring appeared, simple band. Oak inlaid. Marry me proper? Vows in the dirt. Rings in the light. Yes tumbled out. Sealed with summit kiss, wind-whipped. World-spanning. Spring's surge. Grants greenlit. Non-profit launched. Roots for all. Feeding food deserts. Wedding planned rustic. Co-op altar. Community chorus. Vows exchanged amid vows. In abundance and arid. I choose you. Karen catered desserts. Her jam jars labeled sweet surrenders. Humanity. Full circle. The wedding dawn broke golden over Willow Creek. Mist veiling the creek like bridal lace. The air crisp with promise and the faint tang of turned earth. Brandon stirred first. As always, farmer's clock unerring. His side of the bed warm hollow. But the note on the pillow sufficed. Meet me in the garden. Love, your groom. I smiled. Slipping into jeans and flannel. The house quiet save for the hum of our shared life. Coffee pot gurgling. Sketch pads stacked on the counter. A half-eaten apple from last night's strategy session. The garden waited. Dewdrop jeweled. Brandon kneeling by our heirloom patch. Trowel in hand. Dirt smudged on his cheek like war paint. Morning. Artist. He grinned. Rising to pull me into a hug that smelled of soil and sunrise. Thought we'd plant vows before the vows. We did. Tiny lavender starts. Symbols of devotion's quiet persistence. Fingers intertwining in the furrow. This, he said, patting the earth, is us. Deep roots. Purple blooms. The day unfolded in joyful blur. Javier stringing garlands from the co-op rafters. Rosa orchestrating floral cascades in bi-pride hues. Guests trickled, Mark and brother. The activist now ally. Ed with a boutonniere hiding his nerves. Even a few Austin imports bearing barbecue. Karen hovered peripheral. Trays of jam tarts balanced. Her presence a poignant punctuation. Redemption not erasure, but integration. Ceremony at noon. Co-op nave alive with light through skylights. Altar a harvest arch of greens and grains. We stood barefooted. Rings oak warm on fingers. Officiant a local rabbi with a drawl. Love, in all its forms, is the original covenant. Vows poured mine. Poetic promises of canvases shared. His earthy oaths of seasons cycled together. Shane, you painted my world vivid. I vow to till it tender. Every row. Kisses exchanged to cheers. Confetti of petals and cheers. Receptions spilled outdoors. Tables laden with farm-fresh feasts. Band blending country queer anthems. Dances whirled. Father-son sway with Javier standing in. Slow grinds with allies. Ed cornered us by the cake. Layered carrot. Cream cheese kiss. Karen's proud. says you taught her growth. We clinked cider, bridges burnished. Twilight brought toasts. Rose's fiery ode to resilience. Mark's quip on suburban rainbows. But the heartstopper, Karen, Mike in trembling hand. I came as thief, left as kin. Your love, it's the fertilizer for us all. Tears, hers and ours, salt to the sweet. Honeymoon humble, cabin in the pines, echoes of our retreat. Days of disconnection, hikes hand in hold, nights nested by fire, bodies a Bible of belonging, touches tracing tattoos, murmurs mapping futures. Kids? He broached one eve, stars our confessional. Surrogate, foster whichever sprouts, laughter light, plans planted tentative. Return to reality rooted, non-profit thriving, roots for all vans delivering dignity door to door. Willow Creek evolved, diversity covenants etched in bylaws, gardens communal. Hargrove's trial, misdemeanor plea, community service at the co-op, weeding her way to wisdom. Years blurred to bounty. First child, adopted, a spirited boy with Brandon's eyes. My mischief. Farmstead grew. Franchises in Houston's Heights. Dallas dives. We mentored. Movements mushrooming queer AG collectives coast to coast. One anniversary. Creekside picnic redux. Lavender bloomed lavish. Still stealing my heart? Brandon teased. Nuzzling close. Grand theft. Eternal. Laughter lapped the water. Love's legacy. Not flawless, but fertile, human, humane, horizon-bound. In America's heart, where prairies meet progress, we thrived. 2 men, 1 plot, endless harvest. Because grand larceny? It was never the crate. It was the courage to reclaim, to love loud in the quiet corners. And in that, we all got arrested by grace.